this is an age where I would say is an age of technology. It is all driven by technology. And let's say various technological tools are making a huge impact on every sector. And politics is one of them. And in politics, we are using some of these tools to, let's say, accentuate our.
Thank you for joining The Change I Am Possible, which is India's first future tech podcast. And I'm delighted and honored to have with me Mr. Anil K. Antony, who's a venture architect, columnist, technology evangelist, and a social entrepreneur. He is the vice president and member of board of trustees of Navoothan Foundation, a non-profit focusing on healthcare and empowerment of women, co-founder of Pi.org, which is Parliamentarians for Innovators for India, which is committed to unite innovators with parliamentarians, investors, and health experts to combat the pandemic. He's also an advisor to multiple technology startups, including CasperLabs, a Silicon Valley-based blockchain platform, and is currently the National Coordinator, Social Media and Digital Communication Department at Indian National Congress. So, Anil, it's a pleasure and honor to have you on the show. So, let's start with your role. So, what does your job and role entail?
Thank you, Eddie, first of all, for inviting me and making me a part of your interactive initiative. Congratulations on all the amazing work you're doing. So for the Congress Party, I started working from 2017. The first election I worked for the party was in the state elections in 2017 in Gujarat, where for one of our control rooms, in our control room, my work was mainly related to data analytics and understanding some of the trends and so on. So that is where I started. In 2019, when the Lok Sabha elections were about to start from January, I was given charge of the digital campaigns in Kerala, where me and Dr. Shashi Tharoor, both of us were actually given the responsibility of running the Congress's digital campaigns and digital initiatives in the state of Kerala. And since then, my role has expanded slightly, where now a few other South Indian states I'm doing the same. So I would say my current roles as far as politics and technology is concerned is one, again, let's say integrate new technological tools which are possible, which could be beneficial for our party to reach out to more number of people, get our messages across, and use technology to help the organization make more informed decisions. Because this is an age where, let's say, this is an age where I would say is an age of technology. It is all driven by technology. And let's say various technological tools are making a huge impact in every sector. And politics is one of them. And in politics, we are using some of these tools to, let's say, accentuate our work. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Right. And you rightfully pointed out the technology is growing exponentially. It's almost impacting and disrupting all industry verticals. And we are in the greatest technological transition. In this decade itself, I think it will not be wrong to say from my end that almost all possible businesses will be completely upended. The ones who leverage technology will, enter the bright future. Now, social media is growing into a monster. The anonymity has given the users a free hand to troll, abuse, spread lies, incite violence, and spread extreme ideologies. And everybody knows about the Cambridge Analytica scam, where data of millions of Facebook users was acquired by Cambridge Analytica and was leveraged to manipulate the US elections. Now, besides that, there's automated social media bots which are being used to increase traffic on pages, posts, and personal profile, and so on and so forth. Then it's being leveraged across the music industry. Rapper Badshah recently paid 72 lakhs to YouTube for the fake views with the intent of setting a YouTube record, a 7.2 crore views for his song Pagal Hai. Now, data is the new oil, and artificial intelligence and machine learning is increasingly being used to precisely influence, manipulate voters during elections. In fact, I was just reading an interesting article on how the article is titled "How Artificial Intelligence Can Make You the President." And that's the world that we are getting into. So, as an expert in this space, can you talk about the growing role of social media, AI, and big data for elections, the pros and the cons?
You have raised a lot of important issues, and these are all contemporary issues which I believe will become more and more relevant with time. Technology is like a double-edged sword. Like, for example, there are
True.
cons to it, there are pros to it.
Right.
Like even electricity can be used to, let's say, you have so many applications, but at the same time, it can kill a person also. Similarly, like all these new kind of technologies also, like, let's say, these are all double-edged swords. But generally, I am somebody who believes that it is creating the positivities it is creating is way bigger than the negatives. Like technology has actually rapidly transformed our world, where in the last 15, 20 years, like you rightfully just mentioned, like our world has completely turned around because of many of these tools, social media platforms. Like if you're just looking at, let's say, 20 years back. So 20 years back, the world's most valuable firms, like most of them used to be like, at least like 6, 7 of them used to be like large oil firms. It used to be retail firms. But now, like if you look at it, if you look at the top 10 firms in the world, 8 of them are technology firms, large
Right.
technology firms.
Right.
And now, like in the last 3, 4 years, suddenly you are seeing $1 trillion firms, and there are 4 of them, and all of them are technology. So this is currently where the maximum wealth is created. This sector has now made it possible to connect like billions of people. Like it has helped to, let's say, it is creating so many avenues where people, like billions of people, wherever you are, irrespective of your geographical location, irrespective of any other differences you have, like you have avenues of social mobility as well as economic mobility because of digitization, because of technology. So that is a fabulous thing. But at the same time, like you said, there is artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc., data, etc. Like it is the engine that is driving our current world of technology, and it has another element to it. Biggest negatives, I would say, could be in the world of public policy, in the world of elections, politics, because finally that impacts, personally, I do believe that of all the areas, this is the area which impacts people's life more than anywhere else. Like finally, who your government is, for example, in India, like let's say whoever has a government here actually can directly influence the lives of 1.3 billion people, and that is
Right.
how it is across the world. And this is an area which is suddenly being, I would say, drastically disrupted by technology. Again, there are pros to it, where now, because of technology, like I can reach out to my electorate, I can reach out to the voters, and I can exactly tell them what I intend to do for you. I can transfer benefits for you. I can make things more personalized. And again, like I said, I can give you so many avenues of economic as well as social mobility. Let's say in countries where we don't have strong institutions, in countries where you have governments with authoritarian tendencies, they are actually using various forms of technologies,
Right.
including, let's say, social media platforms, including surveillance technologies, etc., to actually become more authoritarian, to centralize more power. So that is something which you are seeing. You are seeing many countries where the democratic processes itself is influenced by, let's say, non-state actors, by other countries, hostile countries, and even within the country, like you are seeing various democratic processes actually influenced by, let's say, people who are, I would say, not that democratic because of the way they can use technology better. So all this is happening. And then you have echo chambers that are being created where, because of the echo chambers, like people with certain thought processes, they are actually getting more and more influenced by similar thought processes. And so polarization is increasing. So now
Exactly.
in political discourses across the world, in India, in many, many places, wherever it is, because of technology, because of social media platforms, echo chambers, you are having, let's say, more polarization that is happening, more voter polarization that is happening. You are seeing more radical elements who are speaking up more, and they are getting more avenues to spread their messages across. And a lot of politicians are using all these tools, like from both, I would say, far right as well as from far left. They are using these technological tools to actually become more mainstream. So all this is happening. So end of the day, like there are pros to it, there are cons to it. But technology, even in politics, like I would say, there are tremendous benefits, and we can actually empower people in a manner we haven't seen before because of technology. But at the same time, even our basic understanding and our notions of democracy itself, like it is threatened because of technologies too. So it is a double-edged sword, and a lot depends on, let's say, what kind of decisions policymakers make to ensure that balance is retained and we actually use it in a constructive manner.
It's so important to have a conversation and figure a way where we can create a balance, because yes, technology is a double-edged sword. It's got great benefits. I think in this 10-year itself, it's going to completely transform how we live, work, and play. Education is one sector which is going to see a complete transformation, and it's going to be completely upended with tools like augmented reality and virtual reality and artificial intelligence. Healthcare can be benefited and completely upended, and training, work, and so on and so forth. But the downside is that we are now biological beings are also becoming hackable creatures, with technology, because so that is something we need to be cognizant about. And the powers that be needs to have a conversation about the growing power of technology companies, because you mentioned that earlier there was a wide list of companies, but if you see right now, the top companies in the world are all tech companies, and they are becoming more powerful than nations. Okay, can we stay on this subject a little bit more? And can we talk a little bit about how Indian National Congress is leveraging technology?
If you're looking at India's demographics, like almost 65% of them are under 40. Like a median age is almost 27, 30, and they all actually get their information from smartphones, from mobile phones. Like the number of people who are actually relying on traditional newspapers or even TV, etc., for getting information is drastically decreasing in each generation, each group. So now we are also actually getting into that field where, let's say, one, we are digitizing more, we are making our information more digitized. And two, like we are also using these new generation tools, technological tools to actually, like, let's say, reach out to people in a more personalized manner. So this is the foundation of it. This is what we are trying to do. And there are many, many avenues to do it. So this is what we do. The more personalized you are and more localized you are in your messaging, like the more effective your campaigns will be. And that is what all political parties are now trying to do.
For the voting process over here in India, we've been leveraging the electronic voting machine, the EVMs. So far of what we know of EVMs, we know that they are hackable, and there's various videos on YouTube that how EVMs are easily hackable. Is it about time that we leverage tech to guarantee a fair and transparent electoral? Could leveraging blockchain for voting be an answer?
So there again, you raised a very important, very valid question, because end of the day, democracy is one of our biggest strengths. We are the largest democracy in the world, and it is very important that our democratic processes are as transparent as well as secure as possible. So as far as EVMs are concerned, yes, like personally, I do believe that any device which can be connected to a network can be compromised. But the Election Commission do say that our devices are not connected to the network. But still, I would say like it is possible. But finally, I'm one of those people who do think that unless proven otherwise, I do trust the sanctity of our institutions. And I wouldn't want to say that our elections are wrong. That is not something which I'm going to say. But still, you rightly pointed out that processes can ensure that things can get more secure. Blockchains can definitely make things more secure. But I do think that we are many years away from actually having a secure blockchain solution, because we are still at the tip of the iceberg as far as blockchain development is concerned. But there are, I would say, like, we don't need to even go that far-fetched. There are existing technologies, proven technologies, including biometrics, including, let's say, linkages to a unique ID, etc., which, if it is integrated to our existing electoral processes, can make the existing processes foolproof. And then, yes, blockchains are evolving. And at some point of time, like if we have I do think that we will have it sooner than later. But when, let's say, we have mature enough solutions, like it should be integrated. Because again, it can make our processes more transparent as well as.
Right. Yeah. There are countries such as Dubai, Estonia, Japan who are actually leveraging blockchain at this point in time, because that's one of this technology which promises transparency, immutability, and most importantly, decentralization. Going forward, I think these tools are going to play a major role across industries, not just in a voting or electoral process, but also in a finance industry. Because so far, if you see, I mean, our finance structure is built in a very centralized manner. Now we have something called as decentralized finance, which promises a complete decentralized financial institution, which also promises that it will reach out to the unbanked, it will ease out remittance, and so on and so forth. You are the advisor for CasperLabs, a blockchain-based startups. So, what are your views on blockchain being used for governance and decentralized finance?
This is an area where I personally, like, I'm a huge evangelist of this technology as such. And I do think that the potential is tremendous, where I do think, just like you said, any sector where an intermediary is required to, let's say, verify the trust of a transaction, verify trust, and maintain the transaction or a verification as a ledger, it can be replaced by blockchain technology. So now if you're looking at it, like the global economic output in the world itself is way over 100 trillion. And if you look at it, almost 3-4% of the transaction fee in that entire economic output right now, it actually goes to various intermediaries. So it's a large number you're talking about. And a lot of it could be replaced by or substituted by blockchain technology. Right now, whatever we are seeing is not even the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
And currencies, now people talk about currencies, but currencies and all is just, let's say, a little application of what blockchain could be with time, where in governance, in finance, like in contracts, like in wherever an intermediary is doing something, like it could be replaced by blockchains with time.
Right. What are your views on El-Salvador? Because that's one of the first nation in the world which has legalized Bitcoin as a legal tender, and they are also incentivizing their citizens with $30 worth of Bitcoin to download their and register on their app. So, what do you see the impact of a nation leveraging Bitcoin as the legal currency? And do you see that in the near future that we might move on to crypto as a legal currency? Do you see that happening?
Like personally, again, I do feel that, let's say, the cryptocurrencies are here to stay, and we are going to see more and more of currencies like coming into the digital market with time. And I do see more and more countries as well as more and more companies like actually, let's say, making cryptocurrency transactions a part of their financial transactions. And then currently, a lot of countries itself, like their federal bank, like for example, China has already launched a digital yuan. India, our central bank has said that we are going to soon launch a blockchain-enabled like digital currency. So many central banks are all working on it. So they are all working on it. It's not decentralized, but at the same time, they are all drawing on the strength of a blockchain where, let's say, things can get more secure and transactions can get more cheaper. But let's say blockchain-enabled currencies, even central banks are working on it. Currently, El-Salvador, like their current tender was the US dollar. But
Right.
now what is happening is, let's say, there are many other smaller countries, other nations, etc., which actually have the US dollar as their, let's say, legal tender right now. But what is happening is, let's say, when the US Fed, when they change their monetary policies, like it may be good for the United States, but it may not be good for, let's say, these countries. And that is why they are exploring other options. And they went to something like this. none of the current currencies right now, I don't think like they are, let's say they have certain characteristics which makes it very difficult to be a sustained legal tender. Like, for example, they're very volatile. They
Exactly.
are still, and there are limitations to even transactions per second, etc., which is another limitation. And three, even now, like, let's say there is a huge debate that is going on, let's say, the underlying asset. Like, for example, a currency needs to be backed by something. And currently, none of the currencies can really give an answer to any of these three drawbacks. But with time, I do see more cryptocurrencies coming out. And I do think that many of the drawbacks I mentioned about will be resolved. And at some point of time, more robust currencies could become legal tenders. If, let's say, you can sort out the issue of volatility, if you can back it with an underlying asset, and if you can actually have a lot more, let's say, transactions which you can do in time.
Yeah. So you opened up so many interesting insights on the crypto problem. A, it's volatile. B, the problem is that most of us are using it only for hoarding.
So even now, so
there's no
exactly.
transaction. Once there is a transaction going on, like how we use of fiat currency for a daily exchange, I think that would be like the first step for possibly even thinking about having maybe like a fiat currency being replaced by cryptocurrency. But the overall ethos and the idea behind blockchain and cryptocurrency is very noble. And there are some really fantastic startups with some great minds trying to solve those problems and those initial hiccups with the technology. And I feel that maybe this decade itself, or possibly maybe these startups will be able to create a currency which is not volatile and where we use in a daily transaction. Now, you had written an interesting article on how, due to digital transformation, everybody is trying to leverage these technologies, especially blockchain. But most of the incumbent company, the industries such as the banking industry, are uncoupling the technology with its essence, with its decentralized nature. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
So recently I had written an article on cryptocurrency. So there I was mainly mentioning about, let's say, something which many of the central banks and especially countries including, let's say, China, India and all are trying to do currently, where you are trying to create blockchain-enabled digital currencies. But at the same time, like, you are trying to, let's say, put restrictions on cryptocurrencies, transactions, etc. in their other exchanges. You are making it more difficult for, let's say, exchanges to be linked to bank accounts and so on. So you are, so you have various governments that are actually, let's say, discouraging. Let's say you are discouraging activities in the crypto world, and still you are trying to create your own digital currency, because, like, you are trying to, let's say, centralize and try to control an ecosystem which ideally should be decentralized. So This is what I was hinting at. But for an entrepreneur or whoever is participating in that particular network, for them to draw value, it is important that they get the coin or token that blockchain network is giving out. And if as a government, like, if you're trying to control that, then an entrepreneur or an investor or somebody who is working in that blockchain network not really have an incentive to work in that particular network. So then you are actually stifling innovation, which is again something which I was bringing out through that particular comment which you just mentioned. There are many dangers which comes through a completely unregulated crypto world, but there need to be a balance. Like, it can't be a complete ban. At the same time, let's say, with better KYC norms, or just like how, let's say, European Union, etc., is working on various norms where, let's say, the dark side of the transactions could be minimized, but at the same time, innovation is not affected and the sector booms. So this is what ideally should be happening.
I feel that the narrative which goes out when it comes about blockchain or crypto is all very negative. That's what is painted, and that's what the media takes forward. They only talk about how crypto and blockchain is being leveraged on the dark web, how crypto is being used for money laundering and illegal activities, and obviously people talk about its environmental impact, but not many talk about the benefits of it. Once the technology actually matures, it holds potential to change the lives of the lowest stratum of the society, and that's the reason I'm so excited for the technology, because for the first time in human history, we have the technology or a tool which can give power back to the common man by creating a decentralized world. So that's the reason I'm excited for the space, and not just for blockchain per se, but also the other technologies. So now politics, BJP has been the ruling party for over 7 years now, and there has been some really good work that they have done, and then there has been something, there are some bad, and there's been some terrible works that they have done. I was super excited for the demonetization, but the way they handle it and introduced larger value currency of 2000 took away the point of demonetization. Post the pandemic, everybody's been disrupted, and what I saw in the Atmanirbhar stimulus package was just an advertising gimmick. It was these banks and big tech companies which got benefited, and the startup community, MSMEs, and everyone was left out. All the startup, or the only thing the startups got was a loan and more loan, which I think will surely add to the burden of economy once things don't really shape up well. Now, as the social media head of the Indian National Congress of Kerala, what, according to you, are the pros and cons of the ruling party, BJP?
Personally, I thought that, let's say, demonetization was one of the worst economic decisions which the country had. Like, let's say, of 60, 65 years, I think this was one of the
But wasn't taking black money out of the ecosystem a good?
But that, let's say, that was the, like,
The intention.
That was the intention, but the manner it was done. And finally, let's say, the things that happened afterwards, the pain it caused to the people, like general people. And finally, like you said, because of various things, the ineffectivity of the whole thing, because finally, I don't think any black money was taken out of anywhere. So finally, when you're looking at the big picture, personally, I think demonetization has set our country back. The economic growth, like, it was almost like puncturing the tires of a moving car, where finally it had to stop for a while before it could again move forward. India as a country, our biggest strength is our diversity, it's our pluralism. Where, let's say, we are a country with 29 different states, different union territories, we have so many different languages, cultures, subcultures, religions, and over a period of time, like over hundreds of years, like over even thousands of years, like, we have actually created a societal framework where all this could work together in a seamless manner. The framework was created and we could move forward. And this diversity and, let's say, this pluralism is our biggest strength. And personally, I do think that one of the main, let's say, beliefs of the current regime, I would say the BJP regime, where when they are trying to create a monolithic or a theocratic India, where you are trying to cut down on our diversity, and when you are trying to bring, let's say, homogeneity, you are actually, I would say, like, you are actually weakening one of our biggest strengths, and this will create too many societal fissures. So this, personally, I do think is their biggest drawback, and over a period of time, this could be what will create so many structural and societal issues in the country. Because end of the day, like we need to have a governmental framework where everybody have to be, let's say, whether you agree with people or not, whether you like people or not. Like end of the day, as far as the government is concerned, you need to create a framework where you have to be inclusive and you need to take people forward. And if you are not able to do that, then with time, like it creates problems.
Right. Right. So I do hear that when you say that the BJP's problem is that they are not looking at the bigger picture. They are not looking at the long run. And the only way a country can grow is when we leverage the diverseness of a country. So many religion, caste, culture, and so on and so forth. Rather than dividing and ruling. But I hope that they understand that the entire world has been completely transformed post COVID, and technology, I think, is one of the tools which is creating accessibility of knowledge for everyone. You could be sitting in a rural area or you could be sitting in an urban area. I think people are becoming more smarter. I per se don't have any political affiliations and I do not wish to, because I think we need to go beyond politics to create a better India. For me, it's about the country, and we need to break away from the thought that divides us, because there's so much strength in unity. And if we leverage the power of unity, I think our country can become great. I hope that BJP understands that, and I hope that somewhere technology is leveraged to create a better India. Now, post-COVID, India has been the worst hit nation, second to US. Our economy is down. We've got job loss. The government is not releasing the numbers of the death of the migrants. The economy is down, but we are painting a picture that our economy is very bright. How do you think the ruling party performed post-COVID? What are the things that, if it was Inc. As a ruling party, what would you have done differently?
Suddenly we were stuck home, and suddenly the digital divide became more glaringly evident, where kids with a poor background who didn't have digital tools, who didn't have internet, suddenly they couldn't study. Similarly, like people were left out of welfare schemes, people couldn't get health alerts, everything because of digital divides. Similarly, like almost 90% of our population, they work in the informal sector, they work in, let's say, the micro and small industry sector, or their small scale entrepreneurs, and they were all very badly hit. Similarly, most of the industries, like for example, I come from Kerala, most of the industries there are very contact heavy industries, including travel and tourism and healthcare and hospitality. So almost all of them were again very badly hit. So I would say like almost 80 to 90% of our workforce, 80 to 90% of our population, 80 to 90% of our industries, they were all really badly hit. And finally, when something like that was happening, our government, like we should have focused on better, let's say, packages, stimulus packages, where rather than we announced like a package of 20 lakh crores, later like many lakh crores. But end of the day, they were all like credit schemes where you could take more loans, or let's say industries could get easy access to loans, or people could get more loans. That was a point of time where cash distribution liquid distribution was a necessity for both industries as well as for people, and we did that. So that is why the Congress party also, like we were insisting on a Nyai package where every household would be guaranteed a minimum income of 6,000 rupees. So this is something which we were very insistent on. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. Similarly, I would say the second wave, like we didn't anticipate it at all.
Right.
Like again, I wouldn't blame it just on the government, because let's say, for example, between February to April, Kerala elections were happening. I was in Kerala and I was surrounded by thousands of people in most of my rallies and campaign events and all. But unfortunately, everybody took it very lightly. But still, like I would say, many of the logistical issues, including the scarcity of oxygen, including scarcity of basic medicines, etc. Like I would say that if we had some more foresight, we could have avoided a lot of things which we saw. So during the first wave as well as second wave, the government had planned things better. If the lockdowns were better planned, if our healthcare logistics were better planned, we wouldn't have seen those sites of migrants walking like that, or we wouldn't have seen people dying in the streets because of oxygen if we actually were a little more foresighted. And then we could have supported our industries. Like, for example, almost 60-70% of the startups have shut down during the last 1 year.
Right.
Almost 50+% of the small scale industries have shut down the last 1 year. And I don't think any of that would have happened if, let's say, instead of focusing on just credit lines, if we could actually sometimes stimulate it in a better manner. So a lot of things could have been done better.
A startup community is the backbone of India, which can become a global superpower. And innovation, I think, is the core. And if we concentrate on that, I think we'll be able to come back to normal. Now, Congress has ruled India for the longest period of time. But then there has been so many wrongs. There has been innumerable corruption or scams. The list is endless. And that's the reason I think India needed a change. And that's the reason India voted for a BJP. But what we got was, obviously, for the last 7 years, I mean, we are asking questions. There is a declining trust with the government. What has Congress learned over the period? And is there a new idea, new ethos coming up, or is it the same old Congress?
Contributions of the Congress party has a lot to do with it. Whether it was the growth of the country as an economic power, the growth as a military power, the growth as like a country with tremendous soft power. All that happened because the Congress party has some claim to a lot of that progress. But nothing is perfect, and we also had there were good things as well as bad things. Like, for example, like when Deng Xiaoping mentioned about, let's say, the time of Mao, like I do recollect him saying that he did 70% right and 30% wrong. Like, similarly, I would also say that, let's say, the Congress party, like if you're looking at our work from 1947 to 2014, I would say like we did, I would say 70-80% right, and we might have done 20-30% wrong. So that's where we are. End of the day, like we are a country, we are a very young country. We are a country where 65% is under 40. Our median age is 27, 28. We are a very young country. And it is very important that we have a narration which actually guides this young population to a better future. We need a narration where we guide this country to a better future. And personally, I do still think that when compared to the BJP, we are a better alternative. Because finally, whatever said and done, like our biggest strength is our diversity, our biggest strength is our pluralism. And it is very important that even now, the Congress party also, that is what I believe our leadership is working on. Where I do think that we need to have a narration and a clear-cut vision where we we strengthen India's diversity, we strengthen India's pluralism, we strengthen India's federalism. We are inclusive, and at the same time, we are forward-looking, we are futuristic, and let's say we have a narration and a clear-cut vision of taking this country forward. Our national interests need to be protected, and it is important that there is a government that exists which takes the country forward and ensure that India retains her place as one of the leading nations. And that is the narration we require. And I do think that Congress party is working on it.
I completely agree with you that the narrative should be right. But besides the narrative, I think it needs to be implemented, because most of the time, there are these narratives going out, but implementations are not there. Now, what are the plans for the Indian general elections 2024? Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
The 24 is still 3 years away, and like I said, a lot of things can happen in the next 3 years. I'm fairly sure that my leadership is working on different strategies. Like we are talking to different parties. I'm sure alliances will play a major role. Similarly, let's say our narration as well as our work in the ground in the next 3 years will play a major role. But I'm fairly sure that, let's say, activities are happening, and it's too early for me to really say what it is going to be in 24. But I do think that we will put forward a viable alternative, like a very viable as well as a better alternative than the BJP in front of the Indian population in 2024.
What would be your personal role, and what is your vision, and what are you looking forward for most?
Firstly, the organization is working on a strategy as well as a plan for 2024, and I don't know what my role will be, but I'm optimistic that I would be playing a role in helping our organization make a mark and hopefully win the elections. That's what we are optimistic about.
Wish you the very best, Anil. Thank you for sparing your time and talking to
No,
us
no,
and
thank
share.
you, thank you. It's been thank you for inviting me for this interactive session, and I commend you for all the tremendous work you're doing and for your vision in creating a ecosystem like the Singularity in India. That's a very noble as well as a very far-sighted, let's say, vision and a mission. And I wish you all the best in what you're doing.
Thanks a
And
lot,
thank
Anil.
you for calling me for this interaction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anil. And yeah, I'm excited for India because I think we are at the cusp of greatness. And if we all join our hands and play our roles and shed away our differences and understand our uniqueness in the space and be the change, I think we'll be creating great things and a great future. On that note, to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, please press the subscribe button. And until next time, see you guys. Bye bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.